news, Christoph Alciuento and more. Listen to Morning Glory all this week to hear Homebrew's self-titled debut as Charlotte's Album of the Week, and you might even blag a free copy with your B-card.
The public, let me tell you, like public executions. I went to Cambridge University, Charles. I'm a serious fucking journalist living in one of the most important fucking times of human history.
The Wire. Good afternoon, you're on 95 BFM, it's just gone 12:15. On the line with me now is our returning political skullduggery commentator, Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz. Good afternoon, Selwyn.
Yeah, good afternoon, Simon. How are things?
Good. Now, the National Party is leaking like a sieve right now. Should they get sponsorship from Briscoes?
Well, it might be an idea. You know, maybe there's something in that. Maybe they can get some sort of funding from there. But yeah, certainly, it's leaking like a sieve. Remember last week, some of the listeners might have heard us talking about, leaks from MFAT or relating to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, cabinet papers, for example, being leaked, which are classified documents, spelling out exactly what the government's plan was. For foreign affairs, and the cuts to staffing, cuts to the overall budget. Now this week, we see that the National Party itself appears to be leaking it as well, or at least documents have fallen into the hands of Trevor Mallard, former Labour cabinet minister and member of the Labour Party caucus, showing that the membership of the party apparatus, if you like, they're not happy with a very, very strong and more conservative element that is attached to the National Party, led by Simon Lusk. Now, this whole thing is really putting a question mark, in my view, Simon, over why is the National Party facing leaks like we've never seen before.
Right. Now, going back to Mr. Lusk, who is he?
Well, Simon Lusk, he's for a long time, he's been attached to the National Party in different ways. He was the party strategist and advisor for the MP for Napier, Tremaine, and remember back that Labour held the Napier seat for years and years and years. Then Tremaine came through. He seemed to be able to take Labour by surprise and took that seat some 2 terms ago. Simon Lusk was all behind that. Simon Lusk lives down in the Hawke's Bay region. He loves hunting. He's got a great lifestyle down there. He likes trout fishing. He likes going deer stalking, etc., etc. But he's very much a strategist from outside of the party control, if you like. He's a National Party true and true, but he's not controlled by the party membership or its elected delegates, and that's what's getting to them here. Now, Simon Lusk. I mean, in my own dealings with Simon Lusk in the past, I've always found him to be a very straight up, shrewd, and controlled operator. I dealt with him over the reporting on the MMP referendum, that went at the last election, and he wasn't going to be talking to other media apparently, and he said he wanted to, work with myself over that, and Scoop actually at the time, because he trusted we'd put out exactly what he said. And not play around with it.
Yeah, and how did that pan out?
It panned out really well. I mean, what we did is we, did a feature article where there was around about, the interaction was over about 35 different questions. Simon Lusk and his team at the time, they responded very, very deep and on time to the deadline, with all of those questions being answered, coming back. And we put it beside the pro-MMP people as well, who responded to the similar kind of questions. So it was a big piece, and it certainly got a lot of traffic at the time and a lot of interest. So I'm just saying here that I've always found the guy to be pretty straight up. What I do understand from this is that he and Cam Slater, and Cam Slater's crafted an amazing career at leaking documents to the public that people don't want to see on his whale oil blog. Now, Simon Lusk and Cam Slater are very good friends, and it seems that they have been grooming candidates, this next wave of National Party candidates. There's the new Simon Bridges, the new Nikki Kays, the ones we don't even know who they are, and he's in there schooling them on strategy, schooling them on how to actually get themselves to a position where they could actually win a seat for National. Now, that's outside, once again, of the party apparatus. Right. The National Party's become sensitive to it, Simon.
Yeah. Now, so the National Party apparatus, how are they responding to... Simon Lusk Simon Lusk, he seems to be cutting out the middleman here, isn't he? He's not going through the centre of the party to work with these MPs. What are they going to do about this?
Well, what we do know, what they have done through this leaked document, is they're saying to the MPs in the caucus, so those that are already elected, look, he's causing us problems, he's causing us concerns, please do not associate with him and try and actually block his moves to influence the party in its direction. That's what we know they're doing. Some of the MPs have ignored that. A very minor percentage of them, I might add, and others are kind of saying, well, like the Prime Minister yesterday saying, well, it's not an issue, I think it's a storm in a teacup, and the Prime Minister's latest thing is saying that the documents were stolen as opposed to leaked, so that seems to be a bit of a red herring as well.
So, talking about the factions within the Labour Party, and that he's working with the National Party, and he's working with particular MPs here. Now, there's a social conservative versus neoliberal divide growing in the party, I believe.
Yeah. No, that's very astute. That's right on the money. If people look at the National Party, I suppose it would be wrong to look at it as one single entity. And what you've got in there is you've got a centrist social conservative kind of group around Bill English, and that used to dominate the way the National Party performed after Don Brash went, and John Key was very comfortable in that camp. More of late, Bill English has lost some significant wheeler and dealer MPs around him, like former Cabinet Minister, former Justice Minister Simon Power. He's gone from Parliament. There are a few others that are gone, and Bill English is more isolated, and his group doesn't hold the numbers. What that's caused is John Key to move across to the right. You've got Stephen Joyce holding all the power, really, and his faction is the most dominant, and he's more business-orientated, neoliberal kind of ideologies, etc., etc. Now, those dividing lines, they do cause attention, and what we suspect, and this is a suspicion here as opposed to stating it as a fact, but our suspicion is that the social conservatives out in the provinces, often aligned to the agricultural sector, they're not satisfied with where the party is going. Certainly the Craffer Farm kind of decision that the government has endorsed, it's not satisfied with that, clearly. And the other areas that the government has been kind of cutting back on, public service cuts, meaning like subsidies to burgeoning export companies. It's not there anymore. They're not getting the support of foreign affairs people overseas anymore. So those social conservatives, the centrists, the conservatives themselves, conservative economic ideologues, they don't like what they're seeing.
Are we seeing resentment seep out in a couple of ways here? And first of all, we've got the leaks, but also, is this helping the Conservative Party with their platform? Is it possible that we would see National Party members jump ship and get on board with Colin Craig?
I can't see that happening. The reason for that is that while it's got a lot of money, it taps into the Christian elements, the more fundamentalist, charismatic Christian movements around the country. And that's where it's largely getting its money from. A lot of its policies are conservative from the point of view of those that you would expect coming out of the Christian circles. A lot of the National Party kind of members, certainly it's caucus representative members of Parliament, they don't necessarily fit into that. So while it's conservative by name, it's not conservative by political definition, Simon, if you know what I mean. So
it's more socially conservative than, say, economic.
And I'd say its economics are more neoliberal from what I'm hearing. Colin Craig's advocating cuts as opposed to trying to actually build a social engineering, economic engineering kind of policy platform. So, I can't see that Colin Craig is actually going to be that successful, even if, I think what some people have danced around with to a degree with the Conservative Party in the last week is if John Banks was forced to leave Parliament and there was a by-election in Epsom, it's highly likely that Colin Craig would contest that seat. If it went to a by-election. And some people have speculated, would the National Party actually look the other way so that Colin Craig could win that seat? Well, and this is my view, I don't think that will happen. I don't think it's even on the radar. I would imagine that the National Party would want very much for either itself to win that seat or take a dive and allow another ACT candidate to win that seat. I can't see that the Conservatives have won enough favour with the National Party elements to make that work. All above this is, these leaks and this disarray that the National-led government appears to have been in the last 3 months. It's a totally different government in that respect to what we saw in the previous 3 years. And I think that there's a lot of dissatisfaction too over a realisation that John Key is an exceptionally good Prime Minister when things are going okay. When the party is starting to fall apart, he does not express the leadership that's required, that strength perhaps that you would expect from a leader of a party to sort all of these things out. Just shrugging his shoulders and dismissing the issue is obviously not satisfying these different factions. And I think that's underlying the whole thing, that people are dissatisfied with the leadership, but they need him because the public like him. I
mean, the sort of disunity inside the National Party, is that more the sort of the president's role to shore up? I mean, Key's, and he's the Prime Minister, but he's got policy to implementing policy to worry about rather than have this fight fires in his back.
Yeah, there's a lot in what you just said there. There is, the party president has a big role in maintaining policy development, getting things working in tandem, but you've got to remember that they operate as two different, distinct bodies. It's, the party can kind of organise by its delegates, etc., some sort of expression of its manifesto and what it wants and what the party should represent. It's also got the job of getting money from all those stakeholder groups and supporters to help it actually fight elections and keep going. Once you look at the actual caucus, those who are elected to the parliament, that's where John Key's job is, and he is responsible as a leader of making sure that things don't go awry, that the party's policies actually do deliver and work a good solid fiscal kind of plan. And that's where John Key is responsible to a degree to make sure that the wants of the party, its various factions, and also the stakeholder groups get to be satisfied with policies going through. For example, just very quickly, I know we're running out of time, but there is a strong element of those more centrist type business supporters that would naturally go for the National Party, who are dissatisfied that National did not reform the RMA, the Resource Management Act, to a degree that they would consider was appropriate. That was in its first term. They were very angry about that, to the point where that's why they put money over to the ACT Party and pushed Don Brash up. Remember, Simon Lusk was behind that. Now, Brash didn't perform, so they took the money out and put it back into the National Party. The rise of Stephen Joyce, in some ways, was expected to kind of offset that want and to work with that group, but it hasn't gone that way. That is quite a different thing. So it's all clouded in there. Somewhere in the mix is a leader that is moving within the factions, and it does appear that maybe he's kind of lost the confidence of one.
I mean, looking at his private sector background, maybe he just wants to be a manager and not have to deal with this.
Well, who would want to be a manager of a bunch of politicians? They're basically, very
herding the cats.
Yeah, so in some ways, there is a big job for a Prime Minister to be a leader of such people, but it's also, who would envy him?
Great.
It would be a terrible thing.
Yeah, well, Selwyn, great talking to you again, and we will talk next week. Have a good week.
Okay, mate.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
The public, let me tell you, like public executions. I went to Cambridge University, Charles. I'm a serious fucking journalist living at one of the most important fucking times of human history.